Okay, I know this is the toothpick archaeologist. I know a lot of you, well, not a lot of you, nobody really watches my channel, so anybody who wants to watch my channel, we're going on an adventure today. So I want to show you a good place to find artifacts, what you should be looking for in the terrain. It has the possibility to be something that you would have artifacts appear. And this is what I'm going to show you. First of all, this is my house. It was dug up. You can see how high it goes from the actual position of the house. And excuse the tree that just fell, I have to deal with it. But this is the most important part coming up here. So if I climb up this, see below me, there's quite a big drop, okay? So when we're digging for artifacts, or looking, I should say, looking for artifacts, and be very clear if you're on National Forest land, BLM, you have to get a permit for this. I would recommend it. I mean, nobody checks, unfortunately, because there's a lot of beautiful things that come out of these areas. So now we're on what I consider to be prime territory. So this is the thing, this is what you want to look for, okay? So where we're going, you can see on this side, we have a nice uphill. And on this side, not much, but if we go down here, oh, it's going to be a little dicey. So I'm going to show you two things today. So this is the first. Okay, now, if you can see, there is a little ravine starting here, okay? Now, I'm lucky enough to be in Colorado where there was a bunch of mining going on at all times. But if you follow these areas that go down, and this is where I was just at, so you'll see buckets. But these areas that go down, that on each side, they start to progress in a downward row toward, this is basically would have been a riverbed, a stream bed. There's actually a spring not too far down from here. So if we start looking, and I mean, again, it's just, I had just kneeled here. I did not plan this out, but you can already start to pull things that, once again, were artifacts in their own right. So right here, we're looking at something that may have been, oh, this one's a little hard to tell. You can see it's been worked on a lot. This could have been the beginning of the spear here. Or on this side. Let's see. It's serrated there. Oh, I think this piece broke off. That side's a little not serrated. This side it is. Like I said, the best things to do is pick it up. See if you can figure out how they would have held it. All right, I think I got it. So this is a knife. Very nice knife. Big one. But so you would have used this, like I said. And so I'm going to leave this here because I'm not trying to pick up any more artifacts. I'm actually trying to create a place where, when I do get a field school dig, which is coming soon, which I will love to show you guys, these artifacts are extremely important to where they actually are. So you will start finding things like that. Let me state, so I think it was Jen. It's probably my only watcher, but hey, I'm going to throw it out there. Jen, one of the things you want to look for is, there's a couple things. You want to look for shape. So if we look at this, we are looking at a shape right here. And that can be very indicative of, I lost my stick. Well, that sucks, but I found another one. Okay, so you can see here, there is, and this is what I'm talking about. So you can see kind of this clear design that began to happen. Now, it's not, I imagine this is this, like this, and again, kind of a cutting surface. Very nice piece. Now, I'm gonna leave that there. Again, so there's shapes. Once you this is what I recommend. So when it comes down to finding artifacts, start looking up shapes, okay? Start with that. All the way back as far as you can go, then continue forward, excuse me, then continue forward from there and try to start figuring out different tool types. There's a great one that was found. It's in, I believe, I may have to edit this later, even though I don't really edit. It was the Eastern, basically an Eastern collection of all these items, and you could actually go through and select, does it have fins at the bottom? So you go to projectile points, and let's say you say, well, does it have fins at the bottom? Let's see. There's something here. Okay, so let's just say, here's another actually really nice cutting tool. Actually, it has, this is something to always look for on artifacts. I'll point it out right now. Actually, turn it this, no. Okay. So here, you can see the cutting surface is here, okay? I know it's a little bit hard to see, perhaps. But what's interesting is actually on this cutting surface, you actually, I don't know if you guys can see this, I hope you can. You're actually getting a little bit here of wear, as well as perhaps a little bit of what was actually cut. This is immensely important because that will tell you what this was used for. It could have been a hand axe. I don't think it is, it's too small. But right in this area, you can actually see the discoloration. So, again, this is probably a knife. It may be a hand axe, but I doubt it. So there's two things, like I said. There's one, mineral type, okay? So if you're looking for a different mineral type, by the way, I always recommend wearing gloves. I have seen the most black widows I've ever seen in my life doing this, mostly at night. But anyway, so you want to look at shape. Weird shapes are a good indication of something. I see a lot of these. I think they're flaking. I think they're made to flake stone tools because there's a perfect grip here and you just knock it. I could be wrong, but that's where this all comes into play. You need to do your research. Research is key in all these elements. If you don't understand your research, you're not going to be able to understand what artifacts you may be passing up. I mean, I cannot tell you, when I first started seeing these artifacts, there was one artifact that came to light to me. Now here we go. Like, for example, this, let's see, serrated point, serrated. Okay, so here's a projectile point. I'll bring this with just for demonstration, okay? And see how it has this little notch, this little notch. You can actually go and put this in and it will tell you kind of the time period. Now that's not completely correct, okay? Don't go just off of that. Do research. I cannot tell you how important research is when it comes to this stuff. So don't only just look at material difference. That is a big deal. Definitely material difference makes a difference, okay? Normally this will stand out far more than this. But when you start examining different tools that were used, you'll start understanding, first of all, time period, which is immensely important. Second of all, you'll start to understand what was going on in the area that you were at. So it's immensely important to understand that. Every area is going to have different minerals. And frankly, if it's an area that's been occupied long enough, it's going to have very, very different, or very many different material types that are here. Now, from what I've ascertained so far, this area had been used for a very long period of time. Oh, that's the other thing I want to bring up. So we're going to walk this way. And now, if you look above me here, you will see there are, and this is pretty steep. It's hard to tell on the phone, but this is extremely, extremely steep. This is a good place to start examining for artifacts because, not because it's steep. We'll get that out of the way. It's not because it's steep. It is because you have massive rock formations. that start to show up. And these rock formations are actually quite pivotal. I don't mind the chipmunks. They're adorable as hell. There's one for you. See, little advantage of just being able to go out and see things. So it's not just about artifacts. Go and look at things that you haven't had a chance to see. You know, I've seen snakes. I've seen a lot of wonderful things. So going up here, you have an area that normally will produce a significant amount of raw material. And that is just simply because this is where they would be looking. Oops. They're looking for that raw material that is good for them. Here's a piece of raw material. I don't believe this is an artifact. I believe this is something that was chipped off, but still interesting. And that one is based solely on what? Different mineral types. You go to this. Here's an artifact I know. And if you look these up, they're kind of strange, but these little artifacts here, see this area right here? That's for actually taking a stick and making it straight to form an arrow without, you know, of course, it's you're taking a stick and you're basically rubbing the stick through here and then making a circular motion to create a nice straight arrow, not a point, excuse me. Sorry, I've had a long day. You're looking for basically the shaft of an arrow. But you can see as I get closer up here, there's going to be a lot more different minerals, quartz, mostly quartz here where I'm at. Quartz is one of the most dominant materials in the world. So you're going to see a lot of quartz. Native Americans really liked to use quartz. It was something for them that was a stronger material. It's not separate, not significantly sharp. Oh, here's a nice artifact. So right here, you have another fantastic knife. Serrated, perfect place to put your hand, and shink. There you go. I know, Jen, you've been kind of wanting to see this, so you can see we're at the top of this hill here. And if you are searching, let's say on a neighbor's plot, make sure that you get their permission. Like I said, National Forest, BLM, you can of course work at. However, it is something you want to be aware of just because of the actual laws that are involved. They don't necessarily include, you know, everything. Sorry, my neighbor's alarm is going off constantly. But they don't necessarily, you can get a rock permit, as well as a very significant thing too is if you go there, oh, see, look, I get to see a little snake. How lucky. That's pretty nice. There's a bull snake. Pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna pass him up, let him do his thing. And now I'm gonna walk on my property, and I'm actually gonna cross into the area where I don't have a stick again. God damn it. Excuse my language. Jen, if you're watching, I apologize. I don't know if you can deal with, if you're okay with such language. Anyway, so let's go this way. Because I promised to show you, particularly Jen, I promised to show you where to look. I'm in a lucky place. Like I said, I did not realize that these artifacts existed here. I thought this was mostly just straight up in the mountains, nothing going on, until I found one artifact. It reminded me exactly of an artifact that I found pretty near Moab. I didn't take that artifact, took pictures, and but it just shocked me. It just came out of nowhere. So using that artifact, I was able to start to understand this area a little bit more, time frame wise, as well as now here, I'll give you guys this. Slava Ukraine. And yeah, hopefully they win out because they deserve it. So now we're going across the road here. You can see here, road directions. It used to be really nice, particularly in these areas here, because it rained so hard. It created an area that was incredibly easy to dig, incredibly easy to see things off the point. Now, why I bring you guys here is because these areas, actually, if you live near a dirt road, on a dirt road, etc., these areas, over time, they have been piling this up. Now, some of it is road-based, 100%, but at the same time, artifacts that are buried in here are in these lines right here, and this is what I want to show you too. So, this is a great place. So you don't even need to look that far to start seeing. That's not something. But again, here, look. This is it's a type of quartz. It's slightly different in color, and it's a little bit more translucent. And this is absolutely, there is nothing coming through on this side, so it's opaque. This is translucent. So, and you can see this side is actually a much sharper point. In fact, this whole thing may have been the beginning of an arrow or spearhead. It's important to remember that arrowheads are not very big, because you're shooting something that is going to end up being, like, look at this right here. See, different color, then you have different shapes. Does it mean these different shapes, these minerals are not something? No. These draw your eye easier. 100% draw your eye easier to it. And don't always go looking for points, guys. Try to examine some of the materials you have. You'll be shocked that a lot of them actually have a thumbnail scraper. And I'll go through different tools, I can promise you that. So we're gonna put this right by its friend here. Thumbnail scrapers, knives, axes, hand axes. Hand axes are amazing things to find. They're massive in size. Here we go. So right here, we got a couple different artifacts. Let's take a look. And again, black widows. This is where I found a black widow, so yeah, be careful. This might be a point for punching through leather. Not leather, sinew, venison, etc. Right here, this I think is either a hand axe or a core. So you have this area that's kind of sharpened. You have a knock. So you have 3 platforms technically. That might be a 4th, but I think that, no, it's actually, so this is probably a hand axe if I were to guess. It's pretty bulky, can hold its own. So again, here's shape, okay? You're only gonna learn shape by doing research, okay? If you do research, you will find a bunch more artifacts that you did not think existed. So go over previous things, like this, for example, I actually know off the top of my head is an arrow point. This arrow point, I think, dates, if I'm not mistaken, now I may be mistaken, but hopefully not. This arrowhead dates to, I think it's 800 BCE. So we're gonna take this one because it's so small. I don't want anything to happen to it. So here's the last thing I'm gonna show you guys, okay? So again, I'm gonna try to show you this in a way that makes sense. So you have this, if you can see, this is that's about a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, approaching 6 up here. And this isn't a really good way to show it, but you can see this hill that's being carved into by graders that are going by. I have permission to dig on her property, as well as looking at this. This is the other thing that's immensely important. Now, I really want to show you guys something, and I think it's very important when it comes to archaeology to understand what's called striation. So, if we look here, Colorado is not known for good soil, period. Colorado is actually known for pretty shitty soil. So, but if you look at this, you will start to see slight differences in the soil going up. And you can start seeing striations that appear. Now, in like Nebraska, they're very obvious. Here, it's much harder. So I can definitely, here we go. Here's a good example. You can definitely see striations here, okay? Then you have a nice area here. Then you start to see another striation here. Now, you need to, if you want to look at that closer, you'll want to go to a geologist, local museum, to try to assess if you're, you know, how these layers actually were in this area. So, you know, you have this, again, look at the striations that occur here. They're held up, and so you know that, you can, I hope you can see this, that you can see this going up. But once again, these are great areas to look for artifacts, to study them, to kind of understand what they are, how they were present, but etc. Another thing, this is what I'll tell you. Here's like a nice vole hill, okay? So these, we always had a term in archaeology, which is they're great for letting us know that artifacts are there. They're terrible for striations. So when you start to dig down in this, there's going to be holes going through your area that you're actually digging in. Now this is for digging precisely using actual archaeological tools with the team and trying to figure it out from there. You dig at probably about, maybe a foot every month. So it is a much more difficult thing. But if you do find enough artifacts in the area, it's going to, sorry, I'm gonna blur this section right here because it just gives my address away. So if you do indeed come across the ability to find artifacts like that, try to track them, try to trace them, try to figure, okay, do I have hills in the area? Do I have rock formations that are interesting, that could possibly have allowed Native Americans to use that point as a point that, yeah, they would say, this artifact, I mean, this area is producing great material. And always remember that material is incredibly important. So here, you know, there's a bunch of stuff going on here. Something that we can talk about, look at later. But again, like, you just need to look. Here's a great knife. This is probably one of the better knives that I've seen. So it was at some point a spear. You can clearly see it was at one point a spear. Now Native Americans are very, very good at repurposing tools. So you have that. I mean, you just have a bunch of little things. Oh, this is actually quite a find. So this is a spear. It has this funny tail that you'll start to see. And then this is where you need to go and do research, because this thing right here, trying to get it focused, right here is a very unique spear point slash, most likely this is a spear point. Could have been an arrowhead, but you can see it. I mean, it's got the serrations. It is a very nice shape. This one's gonna come with me. I'm gonna leave it, and I usually, if there's an area that posts significant artifacts, I will make sure that I mark it, so I know later to come back, determine where these artifacts came from. So remember, when you're going out doing this stuff, look for the terrain. That's my number one, is look for the terrain. When you find the proper terrain, then start looking for artifacts you've looked up. Whether it's, see, like right here is another perfect rock outcropping that Native Americans may have used for tools. In fact, I can almost guarantee it. So look for these three things. I will leave it at this. 1, an area for them to find material. So nice boulders, rocks, stones in a river, river beds. Old river beds are your number one go-to. Those are the ones that are going to give you the best idea of what's going on in the area. and you will see artifacts very, very commonly in riverbeds. You can go into small streams. Look there, look on the banks. And so that's my number one go-to. Number two is, again, to look for these types of things. Sorry, there's a lot of sprinkler stuff here. But these rock outcroppings, they are what gives Native Americans the ability to create stone tools. And then my third, probably my most important thing about artifacts is do your research. When you start finding things, try to figure out what that artifact is, what it was used for, and then you can go and start trying to find artifacts that are similar. Because when I first started doing this, and I'm an archaeologist, I was not aware of the amount of artifacts that were in the area because they were too big for me. I was used to smaller artifacts from Nebraska, where I did my field school. I was really used to very, very small, like tiny arrowheads, tiny punch tools, etc. So do your research for your area. Try to determine if there were tribes in the area. Try to determine what those tribes, how long they were there for, etc., etc. Do your research on artifacts. Points are not the only thing you're looking for. You're looking for hand axes. You're looking for punch tools. You're looking for cores, which they would use these cores to actually break off pieces that they could then form into tools. Look for knives. Knives are very common. If you find knives, you're in a good area. Remember that. You're in a good area if you find knives, because knives are big, they're hard to break, they're a great thing. Finally, most importantly, again, I may have just said this, but research, research, research. Do your research. I promise you'll be in a better place than I was when I started, because it's taken me a long, long time to realize what is here, what is going on, and how you need to understand the terrain around you and how that terrain was formed, and then trying to figure out, okay, in the stream bed, was there a good material for them to make quality artifacts? And like, this is not a quality artifact, it's made out of quartz. Quartz is usually not the best thing to make artifacts out of, because it's not sharp. Now you have a trade-off between sharp material like this, or sorry, durable material, and sharp material. There's usually a trade-off. When I was working in a lab, I worked with TRSS, which is Tongue River Silicified Sediment. It was extremely translucent, extremely sharp. I mean, like, you cut yourself very easily. This is more of, okay, we're up here, we're forming, what we need to form. Now, like I said, I'm very lucky, because once I started looking, I started to find a lot of artifacts in a lot of different places. Now, again, if you need any help, please let me know, and I will be happy to continue and try to help anybody who's looking. So, okay, we'll have a wonderful time, and I wish you the best at finding artifacts, and perhaps even helping your local museum, university better understand, because I actually am still looking to try to figure out who was here. The Indians were here, but that was much later in history. I mean, we're talking about 1700s. These artifacts that are appearing, a lot of them I have traced back to at least 3000 BCE. So something was here before that. I'm trying to figure out what, but again, that's research, guys. Research. All right, this Toothpick Archaeologist. I wish you guys all the best. Let me know if you need any questions. Oh, what a joke. I'm wearing gloves that don't work on my phone. Okay, so anyway, guys, good luck, and let me know if you have any questions. Bye-bye.